This is IBM Museum, and I've gone through and got all the cases of those 3488s glued together and cleaned up mostly. I'll go ahead and flip around once I get the webcam view out of the way. And I went through and I've left one unit that it was just the dirtiest thing around. I mean, I could clean this up more. The case is relatively complete. It doesn't have a badge. But I've gone through just to leave one unit out. I mean, I've gone through and I've got these 5 other units and this one on top, and there's a slight difference in colorization. It's not really quite as visible on camera, at least in this aspect. But this case is a little bit lighter, and this is actually a 3489. And the interesting thing is that this has a video interface that can be done for it to control TV video. And so I'll be investigating that later on. Went through and looked at the ROM code that I found in these older 3488s, and they're all badged as the info window D, including this top one. But you know, that's a 286 CPU that's in this unit at 10 megahertz, and then for the 3488s, it's a V20 NEC V20 CPU, which is an upgrade for an Intel 8088. That goes, the V20s recognize a little bit more instructions and are a little bit more optimized. So back in the day, you could actually go through and put a V20 into your PC or PCXT to improve the performance slightly. And the equivalent of that is the NEC V30 for the 8086 CPU. I'll probably go through and I'll take this stack and move it down just to kind of show. I've got my Clorox wipes and my paper towel and everything else. I did find a lot of the big pieces. I only have a few more little tiny pieces that, you know, I didn't find in these cases to glue together. So let me go through and get these out of the way. Just wheel my chart, my chair out of the way a little bit, and we'll leave that up, I guess, for a moment. I want to make some space on the bench. And this top one slides around a little bit easier. It's like there's not the same sort of rubber feet or something there. And so inside this, and all the power supplies work, and all these are functional. I went through, there's the NEC V20 CPU. And on one, I went through and pulled the EEPROM and captured the code and had Major Tom look it over, and he found the where this expansion port is used somehow to link it into TV control unit effectively for the PS2 TV or the closest associated Tecmar PC/TV. So I have kind of this board and this power supply a little bit spare, as it were, and I can probably go through. We'll throw those little pieces in there and kind of get this off to the side. Get my clean materials, because this is an original info window terminal. And I had 3 of these stashed away, and I do have some others that were fully functional and everything else, but I had 4 stacked up. The top one was an Info Window 2 that I featured on a previous video. I've gone through and did the my info windows, it worked. But I pulled out these other three, and this, you know, the other two work, but this one has had a vacuum leak. Probably the CRT neck broke in the back, and just went through to where the CRT is no longer usable. I don't think that rattle or anything like that is in the back of the unit or anything like that. And actually, let's get that angle a little bit here. Now, so I'm going to go through. I thought about going through and removing the CRT and putting an LCD panel in there, make it a little bit more kind of a retro upgrade, as it were, but using the monitor body. And I thought about even using the boards, you know, this board that's in here, to see kind of if it would work in a little bit the same way or fit inside there with some modifications or anything like that. Now, to go through and to get at what's the so-called logic unit underneath here, it's depressing this blue tab here, and this just pins out of the way. This little tilt and rotate assembly. It's got a little Lazy Susan on the bottom here, cork feet, and pretty nice, you know, little assembly. You see how the lever works, and when you push that in to be able to detach it from here. And then that module idea is included here for you pinch these two together, and that goes through and makes it to where you can just pull the logic unit out of there. And so this is the CRT assembly, and it does have where, of course, the power cord goes in here, and so it would feed, you know, some voltage to run the logic unit, and then you have your control probably for your CRT and things like that on this little edge connector. So I would work and get into this piece, you know, to go through and correct the CRT, but just taking it out of the shell and putting the LCD in there. But this is a logic unit, and I could go through it. This probably still works. I could switch it over to one of the other units to go through and test. It does have the keys, you know, which I can use that lock and the key elsewhere. And I just want to look through this and kind of investigate this a little bit, because despite all the earlier modular construction, then this is a sealed unit that we have to look through. And I wanted to, I mean, it looks very similar to how you open up these these 3488s and 3489s. And really what you have to do is you need to pull that power button out of there first, just that plastic assembly, because as you pull this off, even if you have it pushed in, it still can go through and hang up, and it can get damaged. These are real common replacements on the PS2 side. You get into the Model 56, Model 57, a lot of the units use this sort of power switch, that button on the front, and that can be damaged. But you just go through and you work a bladed screwdriver in the areas to go through and pull this lower module out, just like it's represented here. And this, and I did have a bladed screwdriver around here. I mean, this may not be the necessarily most optimal one, but and then we'll go through and we'll pull the key. And I intend to go through and check these keys. This is an A41 as it's marked there. And we'll go through just to see if we can get this this logic unit apart. Okay, let me see if I can get a better screwdriver and I'll be right back. And I went through and got out several here, or at least a handful. Go through and knock my tripod. Thankfully I have it marked out on the floor for how I have this thing positioned. I roll over my microphone cord. That pause went through and I disrupt more stuff. Then I solve. Okay. I think. And if I were professional YouTuber, I'd go through and I'd have it where I'd edit all that out, but I just like running with what I am capturing and can make the adjustments and move on. Okay, that corner came out pretty good. It's just a little bit tighter, and I'm working it slow. Okay, so it looks like getting down in there, getting a flat-bladed screwdriver, which this is not able to do, but these are. Getting it to where it comes off, and the circuit board is actually, the solder side is on this upper portion. And this plastics can be brittle, so I'm not really wanting to see. There's the lock in there that I can still work with. Pull that out, and we have the connector for that up here on the CRT body. We've got our keyboard connector, the Hall effect sensor where the lock goes, a backup battery for the configuration. We've got two what look to be EPROMs, and yeah, part number and I'll have to read those to figure out what they are. They're just in an odd and even pattern. And there is an NEC V20 8 megahertz that's in here on this board. So that's that square chip. It's right here. That's an NEC V20 in that package, particular package type of the, basically the surface mount, not the older dip style connector. And the expansion connection. And I'll just go through to I'll read these EPROMs too, just to find out what they have for code. It looks like there's even a little test connector, something else that's tucked away there too. And I doubt if the all the connections or anything else would line up, but this back panel is also detachable. This plastic is detachable, comes off, so you can kind of adapt that to whatever. And so that module, or the it fits Width-wise, for that, and I'd have to even remember that it would probably be circuit size. Well, it could be either way. How I could work it. I wanted to line up the mouse on kind of that lock assembly too, to go through and be able to use kind of that opening, but that's fine. I may go through and pull that board out and kind of see how I can do. And of course I would have to put the power supply inside that monitor shell, along with all the connections and everything else to run the LCD panel. Putting one inside there. And there we have the badge, the marking that as the 3477. I get a lot of reflection. But that's the board. We learn a little bit more about it and how it has that modular fitting to go on the underside of the CRT panel. And we will look at, even the 3488 board is a little bit smaller. So there would be bunches of opportunity to mount that in there. And the 3488 having that V20 at a slightly higher clock speed of 10 megahertz. So that looks like it may be a viable upgrade. And of course the 3488 does not have a physical lock because it has that where you can do the lock in a password that you set up on the machine, and where it has that timer can be set up. You walk away from the screen, you can go through and the terminal, you can go through and lock it so nobody can come onto your station and disrupt what you're doing. But that is that's the board. So that's those are RAM chips, and I'll go through and I'll take pictures and everything else and analyze this a little bit more. It's M54C264L. So maybe 64 KB by 8, maybe, for that size of package. Looks like there's a little bit of corrosion around the where the battery is, and it's marked as IBM. Oh, and there's also memory there, and all the oscillator chips, oscillator crystals, tantalum caps. Sometimes these things will pop, in particular on the older PCs. And a little bit dirty on the circuit board too. I'll go through and brush that. But that is the inside of that info window. 3477. And so that'll take a little bit more work to kind of look over and find out what I can do to get the pieces here kind of working in a retro way. So If you like this content, go ahead and click on that like button and subscribe my channel if you have not done so already. Recommend it to your friends so they can subscribe too. But that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.